The Alien and Predator franchises are full of iconic imagery, of scenes that have become so ingrained in pop culture memory, and of scenes that have been spoofed or homaged in countless other franchises. With such a wealth of brilliant sequences, it's very easy for fans of cinema, regardless of just Alien or Predator, to discuss or pick their favourite. But at Alien vs Predator Galaxy, we're such enthusiasts that in our exploration of the behind the scenes and the could have beens, we've gone beyond that and have favourite scenes that have never materialised on screen. The following is a collection of the AvP Galaxy staff's favourite scenes never seen. If you're familiar with Alien vs Predator Galaxy at all, you know how interested I am in the could have beens. I love my unfilmed scripts, my previous drafts, and my deleted scenes. I'm nosy. I just love to know what else there is about Alien and Predator outside of the officially released material, and there's a lot of choices here. As the franchise goes on, some of those unused concepts are recycled into future releases. Though I've never been able to confirm any intention, Alien Covenant appears to be very influenced by William Gibson's viral take on the Alien. But for every concept that does get reused, there's always more out there that I just don't get to see realised. For me, there's only one particular scene that I can say with complete certainty that I just wish I'd be able to see realised, and that is this scene from the pre-Prometheus drafts of Sir Ridley Scott's 2012 Return to the World of Alien. Before Prometheus, that untitled Alien prequel film was very much an Alien film. Fortunately for us movie archaeologists, 2 of those older drafts are available and in our download section for those curious, and they contain a scene I really wish would have made it onto the big screen, especially in Alien Covenant, but we'll talk about that later. While much of John Spates' original intent and structure remains in Prometheus, the finished film was stripped of its overt alien connection, instead of focusing on the engineers. When it was an obvious Alien prequel, there was a scene in which David, following his program to ensure Shaw, known then as Watts, and Holloway could never speak of what they found, decided that the most effective way of silencing her was to expose Watts to the engineers' cargo, the aliens. Like Alien Covenant, much of John Spates' drafts had prominent focus on an earlier iteration of the alien and would eventually feature the more developed aliens as we knew them. Instead of the black goo, the cargo hold of the Juggernaut contained variations of the alien in their most infant form, the eggs. Having chased and knocked out Watts, David takes her to one of the 8 cargo holds within the engineer's ship, reintroducing us to the iconic location from the original Alien. Interior, Juggernaut, egg chamber. Watts awakens, her helmet is gone. David is dragging her across the floor into a huge cargo hold full of alien eggs, the wide trench holding hundreds of eggs under a membrane of light, an evolution of the molluscoids Watts saw before, armoured, hardened, darker. As she returns to consciousness, David explains what humanity's progenitors had in mind for their creation. Juggernaut, the chariot of Krishna, was also a bringer of death, crushing his worshippers under its wheels. This ship has 7 other cargo holds like this one, the eggs in each bay slightly different. They've been weaponized. I've seen the Juggernaut's flight plan. Its destination was Earth. 1700 years ago. This was the ship that never came. This was its cargo. Perfect predators, designed to kill human beings. That's what the engineers were bringing to Earth. This was a death ship. It's at this point that David begins to stimulate the opening of an alien egg, where a facehugger starts to emerge. Earlier in this incarnation of the script, we'd already seen an ancestor of the facehugger at work, infecting Holloway with a proto-alien who wreaked havoc. Now we're seeing the evolution of that creature. Disinterested in David, the facehugger senses Watts' presence and attempts to attack, but David intercepts it, preventing the facehugger from completing its singular biological imperative. David grabs it nonchalantly by the tail, dangles it in front of their faces studying it. The engineers did their work too well, and on this way station moon, the weapon they made destroyed them. Watts shudders, staring at the thing. For a moment the grander horror eclipses her own peril. As Shaw would in the finished Prometheus, Watts wants to know why. Rather than Prometheus's answerless philosophical question, this is a straightforward question and answer. Why would they make such things? To destroy their wayward children. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, and for it repenteth me that I have made them. Genesis 6:7. Funnily enough, Genesis is also the title of one of those accessible drafts. David then expresses his own disappointment at his own creators before unleashing the facehugger, allowing it to fulfill its purpose. All the while, David marvels. Extraordinary. He lets the facehugger go. Watts twists her face away as the long fingers close around her head, clenches her teeth against the var proboscis thrusting at her mouth. Her heel hammers the deck. The scaly tail throttles her, her mouth opens. The proboscis plunges home, the facehugger seats itself. Watts collapses into David's arms, a faceless ragdoll, her blasphemous passenger secure in its place. I think if this scene had been executed well, it'd have been an incredibly creepy sequence and had the potential to be up there among the best of the series. And given how much Alien Covenant recycles from John Space's older scripts, I think this had a place in Covenant that would have prevented an often seen complaint about the film, Aurum getting infected. Once again, Alien vs Predator Galaxy turned to one of our favourite alien artists, Declan Loftus, to visualise this scene for our video. Granted, there was a deleted beat from Alien Covenant where David leans over an egg, showing Aurum that it is safe, but this sequence really belonged in that film. I believe it was the easy solution to getting Aurum into that position. The whole prospect fits in with Covenant's more overt antagonistic portrayal of David, and wouldn't have dumbed down Aurum's character by making him blindly follow David after what the captain had just witnessed. And while perhaps it would have been a more overt presentation of the themes of sexual violation that are in Alien, I think it would have fit in perfectly, as that theme is seen throughout the Alien series, even again in Alien Covenant when David assaults Daniels after she confronts him. It would have not only been a very thematically relevant scene, but potentially an incredibly memorable one as well. The concept behind the scene kind of makes an appearance in Alien Alone, one of the 40th anniversary Alien shorts, in which the android Hope assists a dying facehugger onto the face of McWeir, a character played by Bill Paxton's son James. It was not quite the same intent behind the scene, and unfortunately, and I say this with much respect as Alien Alone is my favourite of those shorts, the facehugger puppet wasn't quite capable of pulling off the intent to the best effect. Though while I feel it would have been perfect in Alien Covenant, I still hope to see some variation of the malicious version of this scene play out in a future Alien or vs Predator story.
The most wondrous moment in the Predator franchise to me will always be when Detective Mike Harrigan pursues the injured city hunter Predator onto its spacecraft in the thrilling finale of Predator 2. Visually unique and stunning as the alien hive, this Lost Tribe Predator ship had the potential of being equally iconic if the ship aesthetic wasn't abandoned in future AvP and Predator feature film installments. Regardless of that poor decision in my eyes, this fabulous Predator 2 ship design and its mysterious living and breathing biomechanical nature is still as awe-inspiring to me today as the first day I laid eyes upon it back in 1990. So it shouldn't come as any surprise that the single scene I still wish had been realized involves this mysterious spacecraft. In the third draft of the Predator 2 script dated January 16, 1990, after receiving the flintlock from the elder Predator Greyback, Detective Mike Harrigan had a much more fascinating exit than what was ultimately presented on screen. Per that third draft, the Lost Predator spacecraft actually seemed to excrete the film's hero, expelling Harrigan, all while stressing this unique craft was indeed biomechanical. The script read, quote, "Suddenly the hard floor below him changes, becoming nearly liquid, Harrigan dropping into the darkness in a controlled fall. Blurred impressions of the ship's biomechanical structure rushing by as a powerful low-pitched whine builds to an ear-splitting crescendo." End quote. Unfortunately, as we all know, this wasn't the scene we ultimately received in the finished film. Perhaps due to cost-saving measures, a rushed schedule, creative changes, or a combination of the three, when the third draft was greenlit by 20th Century Fox and it became the basis of the shooting script, Mike Harrigan's very interesting ship departure was modified 2 weeks later on January 30th, 1990, in favor for a more familiar Hollywood trope. The revision called for Detective Mike Harrigan fleeing through a hatch and running for his life to escape a blast of flames behind him, rocketing from the Lost Predator's ship's thrusters. Was this Outrun the Flames typical action fare the more exciting choice when it came to pleasing general audiences? Probably. But there is never an instance while watching Predator 2 where I don't fantasize about this scene and what could have been. The official 1990 press kit released by 20th Century Fox Corporation for Predator 2 describes the ship as eschewing the typical monitors, consoles, dials, switches, and blinking lights. Production designer Lawrence G. Paul has created an embryonic, organic environment. And yes, we certainly got that embryonic environment on screen, and I am thankful, but I sure wish we could have seen Harrigan's birth as well.
One of the most well-known unproduced scripts for Alien 3 was the Vincent Ward John Fasanu script set on a monastery satellite called Archeon. The script that can be found online is the first draft, but there were many drafts of this story written after this one. The planetoid is made of wood and is inhabited by a group of monks who reject all modern technology. While the script was not made, many of the ideas and concepts from the script did end up in David Fincher's film, and the final film was a bit of a mixture between Vincent Ward's script and David Towie's prison script. The wooden planet is such an interesting and unique setting, and is the reason it generated a lot of interest over the years. Archeon was originally constructed of metal, but was cladded in wood and turned into a monastery by the monks. There were numerous levels inside, some over 100 metres high, which included an abbey, libraries, mess halls, a glass works, open fields with crops, and a large sea on one of its lower levels. At its centre is a technology room that maintains the atmosphere, allowing the inhabitants to survive. Ripley crash lands on the man-made planet after a battle aboard the Seleuco, where Bishop and Hicks had been killed. Newt is assumed to have been killed during the escape in the Seleuco escape pod, and a xenomorph also survived the crash. The monks don't believe a word of anything that Ripley says, and she is later imprisoned. One of the standout set pieces in the script is when the xenomorph goes on a rampage throughout the monastery. The scene cuts to an underground wheat field. Tall golden grass stretches out for miles, swaying gently around huge wooden columns that support the abbey 50 feet above. Several monks move cautiously throughout the fields of the tall grass. All of a sudden, the leader of the monastery, the abbot, spots something. Ahead of the monks, the wheat waves against the wind, begins to ripple, the wheat flattens, a trail forms, something is moving in the long grass, moving towards the lead monk, fast. The xenomorph kills one monk and goes after the rest in the grass. The alien hits the skirmish line at a flanking angle, raking through 5 monks like a scythe through wheat. His tail arms whip out, snap their spines like kindling. Lost torches ignite the wheat. The wheat field is set on fire and the rest of the monks break formation and run. The xenomorph uses the smoke as cover and slashes and tears its way across the field. It reaches Abbott and he realises that the creature can camouflage and change its appearance like a chameleon. Rises out of the grass in front of the holy man, slowly rises up to its height of almost 3 metres. Its long smooth head is no longer black and slimy, it is golden. Its cable-like arms are sheathed in a straw-like covering. It has adapted to the environment of the wheat field. Its now grass-like lips draw back into a ghastly parody of a smile. The scene is very reminiscent of the scene in the second Jurassic Park film The Lost World, when the velociraptors stalk the survivors in the tall grass. The Lost World was one of my first films that I ever saw in the cinema. We did see a similar scene in the recent Alien Covenant film where the Neomorphs attack the team in the grass. There is some strange concepts in Vincent Ward's script, and there is still some plot holes that may have been corrected in further drafts, but I really like the idea of the wooden planet and it would have presented us with some striking imagery.
In the 1983 story treatment for Aliens, then titled Alien 2, a new cast of aliens, dubbed drones, was introduced. In this early version of the story, Ripley finds herself imprisoned in the hive, with one of these creatures in the process of cocooning her. The treatment described this as a small albino version of the alien creature, with an organic stucco gun in place of the famous imagery. The drones are thus hive builders and egg nurses. This is interesting because it is the very first time that the distinction between a drone and a warcast was actually established. Even with the absence of the albino drones in the final movie, this distinction stuck within the so-called alien lexicon used by fans and filmmakers alike, oftentimes used to address the big chap from the first film. It was kept to the point that it was used in various video games. The drone concept would also appear in Cameron's first complete draft of the movie, dated February 26, 1985, wherein Bishop speculates on the existence of a Mother Queen, fed and tended by drone walkers, defended by the warriors. However, the role of the drones in the script is reduced to what basically amounts to a short cameo during the third act, where they are seen relocating the eggs laid by the Queen. Obviously, the drones and the scenes they would have appeared in were cut shortly after, with the hive building process left to the audience's imagination. This decision was so early that the design wasn't even explored visually during pre-production. There are several possible reasons for this. First and foremost, a small albino version of the warrior with a specialized inner jaw would have meant the creation of entirely new suits and puppets. An inset puppet, for example, would have been the obvious solution for the shots where Ripley is being cocooned. Time and budget could not allow it, especially seeing as the same function could be performed by the warriors themselves, which would appear front and center in the film regardless. Secondly, perhaps, the removal of the drones allows the audience to still be, so to speak, in the dark about how certain aspects of the alien social system works, and prevents excessive comparisons with Robert Heinlein's Starship Troopers, from which the film lifts plenty of ideas already. In retrospect, this was a somewhat lucky decision. Despite Alien's approach to the creature, which was coherent with the idea of a biomechanical insect, championed by Dan O'Bannon, H.R. Giger, and Ridley Scott, Aliens was heavily criticized upon release for this very reason. Supposedly turning the alien into a quote-unquote dumb space bug, the drones would have reinforced that criticism, perhaps considerably. Interestingly, there are echoes of the drone in the franchise. First and foremost, the idea of multiple casters of aliens serving the Mother Queen found ample use in the expanded universe from comics to video games. Even an action figure accurate to the original description was released by NECA. In addition, the idea of a small albino alien could be the root of inspiration for the deleted albino aliens in the Prometheus script drafts and concept designs, which eventually coalesced into the neomorph in Alien Covenant. Had the drone survived the cut, it would have certainly been fascinating to see glimpses of the alien social system at work, in a similar manner to what Predator 2 did for the Predators. And, of course, the talented artists at Stan Winston Studios would have brought about a memorable and gross creature character for all monster movie fans. Special thanks to my friends and fellow alien scholars Dominic Coxa and Shauna Kennedy for helping out with this obscure subject.
The journey of Alien from concept to screen is a well-documented one. Even in the days before DVD special features and internet forums, the story of this timeless classic's own birth into the world provided by Hollywood had been written of extensively, with one resource standing out above most others. This was H.R. Giger's very own Giger's Alien, which gave not only compelling insights into the artist's own process during the production, but also tantalizing glimpses of the visuals he had conceived for it, not only in terms of creature design, but atmospheric landscapes and more. Within those pages, we learned the true extent of what had originally been planned for what the Nostromo's crew would have encountered. This was, unfortunately, trimmed for reasons of budgetary necessity, and instead of the derelict craft being depicted docked to an entirely separate location to a pyramidal facility of an even older civilization, foreshadowing the Nostromo's own fate, we were given a more ambiguous depiction. As thoroughly compelling as the visuals were, one especially immaculate and finished piece of art Giger had prepared has forever stayed in my memory. This was a beautifully airbrushed slab designed to look like alien hieroglyphics, within which was depicted the alien's life cycle. Worth noting is that the chestburster is shown with the legs of the earlier turkey burster concept. Although this facet isn't too noticeable, and could possibly have been hidden with shadow, it's a truly captivating piece, and even the glyphs have great similarity to the shape of the derelict itself, which would have only raised further questions in the viewer's mind. To the best of my knowledge, there has never been an explanation given for why it was never included, although there are indications it was at least filmed for test footage. Was it removed to avoid spoiling the surprise of what Kane would succumb to? This would have been our only clue as to the mindset of those who had made it. The skeletal remains were incapable of communicating anything, yet here was something of theirs, reaching across time to relay this in either warning or reverence. It's rare for Hollywood to depict something which genuinely feels like it's the product of an inhuman soul, and this would have been a memorable exception. Along with Giger's hieroglyphics, I eventually came across another famous piece of concept art for the pyramid, this time crafted by Ron Cobb. It's since become my favourite from the entire series, due to how beautifully it evokes the essence of Lovecraftian menace. Something unknowable from across the stars, somehow resonating with our own ancient past. In it, we see a lone figure in an astronaut suit, torchlight spraying across a room, tellingly designed for a form of life far larger than that of any human. The surroundings are carved out of stone, with various Lovecraftian, tentacle-headed monstrosities sculpted and painted over the walls. Above them, light shines down, illuminating the gloom, with the famous universal symbol of the Eye of Providence engraved in a very alien manner, looking out from a triangular shape surrounded by petals or large tendrils. Where the figure looks upon is a huge painted mural inked in the style of Aztec and Mayan art, showing a dead insectoid creature with something having arisen out of it, culminating in a mind, or egg-like shape above. Just in front of this is a massive construction, formed out of 2 blocks sandwiching a collection of mysterious ovoid shapes, seemingly like eggs. We don't know what it could be, but some sort of vast Dracula-like sarcophagus seems likely. None of this seems to have come close to set construction, and would possibly have been at odds with Giger's more skeletal corridor designs. Perhaps it was intended to be found in the pyramid before the budget forced that idea to be abandoned. Whatever the reasons, this incredibly moody and symbolic depiction has remained with me through the years as one of the great might-have-beens of the series. I still hope it might yet be realised in some form, and was disappointed by the recent comic adaptation of the original screenplay not revisiting Cobb's scene or Giger's hieroglyphics. With news of an upcoming TV show and movie in the works, I would love to see either or both of these pieces finally getting a chance to work their ghoulish magic on screen. They gave me a glimpse into a genuinely unsettling world, every bit as much as the derelict we ultimately got. Fingerprints of cosmic beings who were charting the stars long before we had even evolved. A way to place that most haunting of labels, "Here be dragons," back on the map. I can't be the only one who remembers that intriguing quote Ridley Scott gave us in 2010 for the Alien Anthology box set. This dark, mysterious universe filled with aliens, space jockeys, and something even more dangerous that you haven't seen yet. Whatever one's views of the prequels, this promise has arguably yet to come to fruition in anything we've yet been shown. But a dip in the collective pool Giger and Cobb provided us in these two examples could easily rectify that. As disturbing as that brief walk through the derelict was, it could have been more. We could have been shown more, and still could be.
It's always a fascinating exercise for us fans to delve into what could have been when it comes to Alien, Predator, and AvP. Some recent media has taken advantage of this curiosity, such as the Alien the Original Screenplay graphic novel, or the numerous media releases of William Gibson's version of Alien 3. The films have their unseen scenes, both shot and unshot, which have kept our imaginations ignited. There are plenty of moments recorded and hidden in production studio storage that I'd still love to see. The emissary Predator sharing a cigar with the loonies, an extended confrontation between Ripley and the runner alien in the basement, or the fate of the youngsters, Kendra and Curtis, in AvPR. While it's difficult to single out the one that keeps me intrigued the most, a particular scene that I've always wanted to see was the original opening for AvP, Alien vs. Predator. The planned first scene of the movie would have had us witness an ancient jungle hunt with South American warriors stalking a wild pig, thousands of years ago with a pyramid dominating the skyline. We'd later get a glimpse of this distant past that the Predators ruled over in the movie's flashback sequence. The party's hunt would be interrupted when the tribal warriors disappeared one by one, snatched by monsters in the darkness. The jungle setting would set up an expectation this is a predator picking them off, but it quickly becomes clear that the xenomorphs are the ones striking from the trees and bushes. This scene was never shot, but the plans were in place, as we can see in the script breakdown dated August 29, 2003. The first time we heard of the scene was from Ain't It Cool News' thrashing of an early version of the movie script they acquired. This opening would have taken place in Cambodia, though in the aforementioned breakdown, the setting is crossed out and replaced with Antarctica, signifying the intention to replace the opening with the 1904 set whaling station scene. The attack of the hunting party by aliens would be interrupted by a predator, as the last surviving hunter witnessed his god engage one of the demons before it could get to the human. The most comprehensive telling of the scene can be found in the movie's novelization, which had the author Mark Saraceni working from earlier drafts. The novelization included both the original opening as a prologue as well as the 1904 whaling station scene that would replace it in the movie's extended cut. The Alpha Hunter Funin would lead his spear-bearing warriors through the jungle as dusk became night. In the book, the scene is listed as taking place in Cambodia, 2000 BCE. Their hunt would bring them near the Predator's hunting grounds, temples that were forbidden except for uses of the Chosen Ones. Never before had they hunted this close to the sacred temple. Although the jungle around the stone pyramid teemed with wildlife, hunters always shunned this forbidden place. Only during the time of sacrifice, when the local tribes offered up their young men and women to the gods, would the people enter these grounds. It wasn't long before their hunt became survival, as one by one they were taken by the shadows into the darkness. Funen was all that remained, and his panicked eyes would fixate on an alien revealing itself. With mounting horror, Funen watched the dark, oily bark begin to move, peeling itself away from the trunk. With a fleshy, popping sound, the shapeless mass sprouted limbs. Then an oblong head emerged, the appendage covered with glistening, near-translucent skin. A bony, segmented tail unwound itself from a heavy branch, and with a wet thump, the writhing obscenity dropped to the ground. As the alien approached the warrior, its attention would be turned to the attack of another monster from the darkness. Invisible at first, this new challenger would reveal itself. The phantom paused to hover over the fallen hunter, and as Funen pulled his hands away from his face and looked up, the ghostly blur formed into a solid thing, a nightmare that appeared part man, part reptile, part demonic beast. The phantom stood on two legs as thick as logs. Its torso was scale, its wide face covered by a metal mask. Barbarous eyes burned from behind that mask, eyes Funen desperately tried to avoid. The Predator engaged the alien and the fight would cut away into the title, similar to how we see in the whaling station prologue scene that would ultimately replace this one in the extended cut of the film. Perhaps this elaborate scene wasn't quite the right choice for the theatrical version, which instead opened with the eerie visage of a silhouette of an alien queen floating in space that we discover was actually one of Weyland's satellites, but I still wish this would have been filmed to give us even more of an extended cut in the home release. Seeing the aliens in a jungle setting is something I've always wanted to see on the screen, and thankfully we've seen a bit of this in expanded media. 2010's Aliens vs. Predator video game featured the film's temple aesthetic in an otherworldly jungle, as did the AvP film's tie-in comics, Thrill of the Hunt and Civilized Beasts. But with the movies, we've been close to having it twice, with AvP and Alien Resurrection. Here's hoping that the setting with aliens finally becomes a reality someday. I've also always been interested in this scene for giving us more to witness of the Erich von Däniken-inspired ancient world ruled over by the Predator gods. We only really had a few shots with the ancient peoples who worshipped the Predators in the flashback sequence, and spending this additional scene with some of them could have further fleshed out the ancient Predator-ruled world of the film.
And that's it for our favourite unseen scenes. How about you folk out there? Sound off in the comment section below to let us know the favourite scenes of yours that were never filmed. If this is your first time watching one of our videos, thank you for joining us. And if you're a returning watcher, thanks for sticking with us. If you've enjoyed what you've seen here today, please make sure you hit that subscribe button, give the video a like, and hit the notification button so you're alerted to any new uploads. The hub of our activity can be found on avpgalaxy.net, where we have old school message boards where you can sign up and get involved with fellow fans. We're also on all the normal social medias, Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, and we can be found under @AvP Galaxy or Alien vs Predator Galaxy, versus as in VS. Thank you once again for watching. This has been the AvP Galaxy staff, signing off.